Today, we're diving into the art and science of teaching English. And it's a huge deal, a global industry, a massive cultural force, and for literally millions of people, it's a skill that changes everything. So, how on earth did one language get to be so important?
I mean, really think about it. Pop music, scientific papers, air traffic control, the entire internet. English is just everywhere. But why? Of all the languages in the world, what made this one the default setting for a global conversation?
Well, for starters, it's just the sheer scale of it. We're talking about an estimated 700 million people who speak English. But here is the really mind-blowing part. The number of people who speak English as a second or foreign language has now officially passed the number of native speakers. And that changes everything.
What this does is turn English into the world's #1 lingua franca. Now that's just the official term for a bridge language. You know, it's the language a business person from Germany and a client from Japan will probably use to close a deal. It's how a tourist from Brazil can ask for directions in Thailand. It connects people.
To really get a handle on this global spread, the linguist Braj Khatru came up with this really clever model, the 3 circles of English. First, you have the inner circle, the traditional base, right? The UK, the USA, Australia. Then there's the outer circle, places where English has official status, often for historical reasons, like India or Nigeria. But the real game changer, the thing that's exploded in recent years, is that massive expanding circle. We're talking China, Russia, Japan, countries where people are learning English purely to connect with the rest of the planet. Okay, so that's the big picture, the bird's eye view. But to really understand how language teaching actually works, we need to zoom way, way in. We've got to go from the world map right into the mind of the individual learner. So let's meet the learner. And I want you to actually do this with me for a second. Think back to your own language classes in school. Who were you in that room? Were you the kid who aced all the vocab tests, the one who secretly loved acting out the dialogues? Or, let's be honest, were you maybe the one just kind of staring out the window, totally lost? Our own past experiences really color how we think about this stuff. A huge factor, of course, is age. Kids are like sponges. They don't so much learn a language as they just absorb it. They soak it up from all around them, usually through playing. Adults, though, they bring some serious superpowers to the table. They've got logic, abstract thought, and a whole lifetime of experience to connect things to. The flip side, they can also bring some baggage, like that little voice in your head that's terrified of making a mistake. And that can really get in the way. And it's not just about age, it's about your style. Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences basically says there are many different ways to be smart. So a word-smart person learns best by reading and listening, but a music-smart person might pick up grammar through the rhythm of a song. And a body-smart or kinesthetic learner, they need to get up and move, to physically interact with things. A great classroom has something for all of them. And finally, what's actually pushing you to learn? Well, there's extrinsic motivation. That's the outside stuff. You need to pass a test, get a promotion, travel, and that's a powerful driver. But the real engine for long-term success, that's intrinsic motivation. That comes from inside you. It's the pure joy of learning, the satisfaction of improving just for yourself. And a good teacher knows how to light a fire under both. All right, we've met the learner. Now let's flip the script and look at the other key person in this equation, because being a teacher is so much more than just being the person who talks at the front of the room. I mean, in any single lesson, a teacher wears a ton of different hats. One minute, they're the controller, leading everyone from the front. The next, they're an organizer, buzzing around the room setting up a group activity. Then they might need to be a prompter, giving a gentle nudge to a student who's stuck, or a resource, answering a tricky question. And all the while, they're being an observer, constantly taking the temperature of the room and seeing what's working and what's not. I absolutely love these metaphors that teachers use to talk about their jobs. Some say they're like actors because they're always on stage. Others feel like orchestra conductors, trying to bring all these different students together to create something beautiful. But my favorite has to be the gardener, the one who knows their job is to create the right conditions, plant the seeds, and then step back and just watch them grow. Okay, so we've got our learner and our teacher. The final piece of the puzzle is the how. What's actually happening in that classroom? Let's take a quick tour through some of the big ideas that have shaped English teaching over the years. For a long, long time, methods like audiolingualism were king.
The idea, which came straight from psychology, was that learning a language is just like forming a new set of habits. So the classroom was all about drills and repetition. There is a cup on the table. Repeat. There is a cup on the table. The goal was perfection. Making a mistake was seen as a total failure.
This thinking led to one of the most famous models in teaching, PPP. It's a simple, logical, three-step dance. First, the teacher presents a new piece of language. Next, the students practice it in a very controlled, safe way. And finally, they move to production, where they try to use that new language a little more freely and creatively. It's neat, it's tidy, and you still see it everywhere.
But then, a revolution happened. The whole focus of teaching began to shift, from just making perfect sentences to, actually communicating. The goal wasn't to avoid mistakes anymore. The goal was to successfully share an idea or finish a task. The why you were talking suddenly became way more important than how perfectly you were saying it. This new philosophy gave birth to approaches like task-based learning, or TBL, which basically flips that old PPP model on its head. Here, you start with a real communicative challenge, the task. You throw students in the deep end and ask them to solve a problem using whatever English they've got. It's only after they've tried and succeeded or failed that the teacher steps in to focus on the specific language that could have helped them. Okay, so we've seen everything from rigid drills to free-flowing tasks. We've talked about teachers as controllers and teachers as gardeners. After all these years and all these debates, is there one clear answer? What's the best way to teach a language? And the answer, which might sound a little disappointing at first, is this. There is no magic bullet. The search for the one perfect method that will work for every single student in every country, for every age, it's over, because it doesn't exist. Instead, what a modern, effective teacher does is practice something called pragmatic eclecticism. It's a fancy name for a simple idea. You have a big toolbox filled with techniques from all the different methods, and you skillfully pick and choose the right tool for the right students on the right day. So, even though there's no single perfect method, there are some rock-solid principles that we know work. Students need tons of exposure to English. Their activities need to have a real communicative purpose. And this one's critical. Their anxiety needs to be low. It's called the affective variable. Basically, when we're stressed, our brains just stop learning. And of course, great teaching encourages discovery and always respects the cultural background of the learners. So a language classroom isn't a factory assembly line. It's a dynamic, living ecosystem. It's a complex and beautiful dance between the unique needs of the learner, the many different hats of the teacher, and the philosophy behind the method. The next time you happen to see inside a classroom, or even just remember one of your own, what do you think you'll see?